Well, as you guys know, my entire career is based on filling in for Dr. Pinto, and it's been my pleasure to take those openings. But he does have a reasonable explanation today. He received a $20 million grant from ARPA for developing new surgical instruments, and the collaborative meeting was scheduled for today. He did turn it down once, and then the director of the NCI called him and said he had to show up. So I felt that was a reasonable excuse for him not attending the session today, but he'll be here tomorrow. So this session is something that's been near and dear to our hearts in the Focal Therapy Society. We have struggled over the last 15 years in developing a place in the surgical armamentarium for the use of focal therapy. We have collaboration. Dr. Pinto is the non-voting board member of the Focal Therapy Society, tasked with being the liaison between government agencies and ourselves in our goals of pushing the field forward, improving urologic care, specifically in the focal therapy realm. So it's unfortunate he's not here today, but I first like to welcome all our colleagues from the FDA. Every year the session gets better and better, and we really appreciate your time. I know there's a lot of paperwork just to come down and spend time with us, so we really appreciate it. And I first like to welcome Mark Anthonino to the stage to start with the session. Again, give him a warm round of welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Mark Anthonino, a biologist and assistant director for the urology team at the FDA Center for Devices and Radiological Health. Today I'll be giving a brief presentation on the overview of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and its role in regulating focal therapy devices. First, I'll highlight the statutory basis of FDA device regulation. After that background, I'll go over the current regulatory direction of focal therapy devices. FDA is organized into several different centers based on medical product review areas. The centers are led by the Office of the Commissioner, the Office of Regulatory Affairs, or ORA, is where our district offices across the United States are housed, and they support all the centers by conducting inspections and other compliance activities. The centers include the Centers for Devices and Radiological Health, or CDH, where I work, and where medical device review takes place. I think there's an error with the mouse. Is there any way this can be fixed?
Yeah,
so that
and
I can
also there's an
scroll?
echo on the feedback. We have something wrong with the laptop? The mouse isn't working? There you go. What do you need? Oh, it's, yeah.
Yes.
The touchpad's not working. It keeps resetting to the center.
Yeah, if you could just allow me to control it. I think you're controlling it at the same time. Great, okay. For the purposes of this presentation, I will focus on CDRH's regulatory role in pre-market submissions. Although FDA was formed in 1906, until 1976, FDA had very limited authority over medical devices. For regulatory purposes, FDA treated devices as drugs in these early years, but did not have pre-market review authority. That changed in 1976 with passage of the medical device amendments, coming on the heels of thousands of injuries due to the Dalcon Shield intrauterine device. These amendments provided the FDA with a wide range of authorities, including the authority to require pre-market review of new devices. Devices on the market on or before 1976 were grandfathered and permitted to remain on the market. These regulatory activities are currently performed by the Center for Devices and Radiological Health. Importantly, the statute provided for 3 risk-based classes of medical devices, each requiring different levels of regulatory oversight. A risk-based benefit analysis is typical and performed where both safety and effectiveness are evaluated. Class 1 devices are considered low risk. The FDA believes these risks can be mitigated by general controls, which are basic requirements that typically apply to all devices. Class 1 devices are generally exempt from FDA pre-market review. Class 2 devices are moderate risk. The FDA believes that sufficient information is available such that the risk can be mitigated by both general and special controls. Special controls are device-specific requirements and include special labeling, testing, and adherence to industry and other standards. Class 3 devices are high risk. Regulatory controls are needed to ensure reasonable assurance of safety and effectiveness. Insufficient information exists to mitigate the risk with general and special controls alone of Class 3 devices. Although general controls continue to apply, valid scientific evidence in the form of clinical data is typically required in a pre-market approval or PMA application. The most commonly used pre-market path is the pre-market notification, more commonly referred to as a 510K. A 510K is a risk-based is a risk and class dependent. Class 2 devices are eligible for the 510K or the de novo pathway. The 510K pathway is appropriate for so-called Me Too devices or a predicate device with the same intended use and frequently the same technology has been identified. A predicate may have been previously cleared through the 510K or de novo process or grandfathered by the medical device amendments of 1976. The regulatory standard is such that the FDA must find the new device substantially equivalent to the predicate to clear its pathway to market. Where there are differences in technology, those differences should not give rise to new questions of safety or effectiveness. The de novo pathway was introduced later as a means of approval for innovative, low to moderate risk devices. Since it's an innovative device, an appropriate predicate can be identified. The de novo pathway allows for reclassification of an innovative Class 3 device to Class 2 or even a Class 1 device if the FDA is assured that general and special controls can mitigate the risk, appropriate for reclassification to a lower risk category. Class 3 high-risk devices undergo the more lengthy and rigorous pre-market approval or PMA process where clinical data is almost always required. Class 3 devices are those that support or sustain human life, are of substantial importance in preventing the impairment of human health, or which present a potential unreasonable risk of illness or injury. Due to the level of risk associated with Class 3 devices, FDA has determined that general and special controls alone are insufficient to assure the safety and effectiveness of Class 3 devices. This slide provides a quick overview of the regulatory history of two existing devices indicated to treat prostate cancer. The first example is brachytherapy seed implants. Brachytherapy seed implants were on the market prior to 1976. These early devices were large radioactive pellets that were used to treat a wide range of solid tumors, including prostate cancer, and needed to be implemented in an open surgical approach. In 1976, this category of devices was placed into Class 2, meaning that subsequent versions would require 510K clearance. Over time, multiple incremental modifications were found to be substantially equivalent based on comparison of radiation parameters. Like brachytherapy seed implants, early cryosurgical systems were on the market before 1976. These early systems had large cryoprobes and were indicated to ablate soft tissue in a variety of medical specialties. Of note, a marketed pre-1976 urological use of cryosurgery included treatment of prostate cancer involving transurethral placement of a single probe. After the medical device amendments, cryosurgical systems were classified into Class 2. Around 1990, smaller needle probes were developed, leading to the evolution of probe arrays that could be percutaneously placed within the prostate under ultrasound guidance. Additionally, several advances in cryogenic therapy or technology occurred during this time. These incremental changes were 510K cleared, primarily based on similarities in thermal and tissue ablation characteristics. The regulatory history of external beam radiotherapy, also frequently used to treat prostate cancer, is similar to that described here. It is important to note that other than the radiotherapy and cryosurgery devices, no prostate cancer device technologies have been approved in the United States since 1976. For a device with a prostate ablation tool claim, the main objective is to demonstrate the safety and effectiveness of the device for its intended use as a surgical tool for the ablation of abnormal prostate tissue. We provided a link to the tool claim guidance here. The devices with focal ablation tool claims are reviewed as 510Ks. Special controls have been put in place to ensure reasonable assurance of the safety and effectiveness. An example of this is clinical data. For a device with a gland therapy or salvage therapy prostate cancer treatment claim, the indications for use is for the treatment of prostate cancer in contrast to the tool claim of ablation of abnormal prostate tissue. The goal with such a device is to eliminate high-risk prostate cancer so the patient can return to active surveillance or to remove all prostate cancer. The devices with prostate cancer treatment claims are high-risk devices and therefore fall under Class 3 devices. These are reviewed as PMAs because of the risk associated with prostate cancer. So I'll conclude by saying, or one more slide, sorry. Investigational device exemptions, IDEs, allow for the devices to be used in a clinical study in order to collect safety and effectiveness data. Clinical studies are most often conducted to support a PMA. For example, a prostate cancer treatment device to receive PMA approval, an IDE is typically evaluated to support that the benefits of the device outweigh the risk. Only a small percentage of 510Ks require clinical data to support the application. Investigational use also includes clinical evaluation of certain modifications or new intended uses of legally marketed devices. All clinical evaluations of investigational devices, unless exempt, must have an approved IDE before the study can be initiated. So I'll conclude by saying that to date, no focal therapy devices are regulated as Class II devices, the 510K pathway for intended use of ablation of abnormal prostatic tissue. Devices seeking a claim for treatment or management of prostate cancer are likely Class III devices that require a PMA. I'd be happy to answer questions during the question and answer. Thank you.